What's going on, guys? TG or Thundergod here, and I have a pretty special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Swag Kage here.
Yes. I went to the Reaper. I pulled him out. I got him on the channel. Y'all wanted it. I got him back up. I got him. And today we have a very fun discussion. A very open discussion. I think a lot of you will enjoy. We're essentially going to just be like swapping around like the War Arc fights that happen and kind of like be swapping around the teams that fought like the 3 final bosses. So we'll be mainly like swapping around like Madara, Kabuto, and Obito, as those are like the 3 narrative final bosses with like the teams that fought them. That's a lot of characters. I'm not going to say all that. If you guys enjoy this, want to see more of this, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. You've seen this guy, you know the deal. I'm not gonna say too much about it, but yeah, with that being said, we can get started into the video. So starting off, we have Kabuto versus the 5 Kage. Now, this is a very interesting topic in my opinion, because I think a lot of people just don't put enough respect on Kabuto as a fighter, specifically his Sage Mode form. I want to make that clear. His regular form, it's just noted he only surpasses Orochimaru when he enters Sage Mode, so you're kind of dealing with like an Orochimaru level like combatant who's getting like high off Orochimaru's chakra. Comparing that to just soloing the 5 Kage or like dealing with them, it's obviously a very big jump. This is kind of like a pretty crazy discussion, and before you even get into the matchup, we have to talk about how the locale drastically alters this matchup and like how the combatants do. Do you want to like talk about this for a second?
Yeah, so when Itachi and Sasuke fought Kabuto, he had this tremendous advantage because of the terrain, because with his Sage Jutsu, he was able to control the cave. Like, it's like some crazy, like, I don't know if it's Earth style, but it seems sort of like Earth style. He's like earth bending the cave and like using it to like crush them and like causing stalactites and stalagmites to come out everywhere and like impale people. So, you know, like that level of freedom, like he can just do whatever he wants, right? If they fight in the cave, especially because he can use Bracken Dance, which we'll talk about the Sound 5 abilities a bit more. But Bracken Dance specifically, combined with the ability to manipulate the terrain that freely, you know, like, because he can move the ceiling, he can move the ground, he can, like, that sort of stuff, and then he can also make bones that he can then travel between. I think that it completely changes the matchup. If the 5 Kage fight him outside of the cave, like in like the desert where they fought Madara, it's way more doable for them, but I just don't see how they win if they fight him in the cave. I think they all get crushed, like, immediately, honestly.
Yeah, honest, like, first and foremost, you have, like, White Extreme Attack, which is, like, the giant dragon that is pretty much, like, the way I describe it, it's like a sound grenade and, like, a concussion grenade all in the same, like, point. And this attack is stronger in the cave because they're going to be in closer proximity. It's going to be a closed area, so sound will travel better. Light, you know, they're going to be closer to it, so the light will be far more effective. And listen, like, if Itachi with an Edo Tensei body that like can null pain and just kind of, you know, he can barely react to it with the Susanoo, he's pretty much catching a body here. Like, it doesn't matter really which one of the 5 Kage, none of them are going to be able to resist it. None of them are going to be able to do something. There's not going to be too much here. And you might be wondering, like, oh, well, what about like the speed aspect? Like, how do we see Kabuto? Kabuto just scales too, like, you know, comparable to the Itachi.
Yes, he is 5 Kage level 100% because he blitzes Edo Itachi multiple times. And another thing that we should go ahead and talk about, because we're going to be talking about Kabuto fighting another group later on, is that when he was fighting Sasuke and Itachi, he was holding back so as not to kill Sasuke. But when he fights against Itachi and he exchanges with Itachi and he attacks Itachi, it's like he's going all out because Itachi can just regenerate over and over. Like, Itachi doesn't die immediately. But if Itachi didn't have that Edo regen, he'd be smoked. He would be, like, out of there immediately. So, you know, and I mean, like, it's, like, really, really, really clear, like, blitzes, you know, a couple of times. The biggest one is when he just bisects him with his chakra scalpel. Maybe Tsunade and maybe the Raikage are durable enough to just, like, eat that. But I feel like Gaara, Onoki, Mei, they're just done if he hits him with that. But anyway, getting back to the speed point, I think that, like, if he's hitting Itachi, who's arguably relative to Ninetales Chakra Mode Naruto, and he's not just hitting Itachi, he's, like, bullying him in speed. And the Raikage is the speedster of the 5 Kage, you kind of see where this is going. I don't think Kabuto is going to have that much trouble keeping up with them. The Raikage is fast, so I don't think that Kabuto is going to, like, run circles around him or whatever, but, like, Mei, Tsunade, Gaara, Onoki, it's not good.
Yeah. So, something I would note, too, is that Kabuto performs a lot better, like, close range to Itachi than, like, far range. But realistically, this is the same guy who dodged a Susanoo arrow with like sensory alone. Like he doesn't even see it. He's like still in his snake forming, and he's like, nah, bro, nah, I'm not just having any of that. And you can maybe see like, okay, maybe you want to take the Raikage when he's lightened by Onoki. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up too. Because when A is, you know, like having his speed buffed by Onoki, then I think that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Kabuto would see the combo coming like right away. I think it's something that he would have to experience firsthand before he'd be like, oh, I need to do something about this. But I don't think it's enough to take him out. Like, I don't think that even with the lightened boulder jutsu to make the Raikage fast enough to hit Kabuto, combined with the heavy boulder jutsu to, like, you know, amp the strength of the Raikage's punches, I don't think that that's eating through Kabuto's insane durability plus regen.
Yeah.
So
it's just way too much. It's just way too much. I agree with you. And I would add too, on top of everything you saying, because you mentioned like the Raikage and Tsunade, because, you know, an in-character situation we could see is like Tsunade just breaking down the cave. But it's kind of like you have to argue Kabuto lets her get away with this. It's kind of predetermined on who you think Kabuto goes for first, like with his jutsu and stuff like that, because that does matter, and that does like kind of like shift the outcome here and stuff like that. But realistically, like, we also do know Kabuto can just attack their muscles. He doesn't even have to just attack them. He can kind of like skirt by the durability aspect as well. So he kind of like has options for like everybody, even with like his base ability, with Karin's regen, with Suigetsu's ability to like liquefy through like physical blows. He has all this stuff. Maybe the one thing I could see is like maybe you could argue he might be more susceptible to like lightning release, but I think that's kind of baseless. Like I just because Kabuto's like way he liquidates isn't exactly the same as Suigetsu. He doesn't go into water. He's just flesh. He doesn't even completely liquidate. His like flesh just kind of becomes like putty. You know what I'm saying? It's really weird.
Yeah, and Sasuke is a lightning style user anyway, and he never tried, and he knows about Suigetsu's weakness.
Yeah,
he's seen it firsthand, and he never even thinks to try to exploit hydrification by using lightning style. So I agree. I think it's baseless to assume that the Raikage would be able to just like bully him through that.
No, I agree. So again, the problem with the cave is, like you mentioned earlier, inorganic reanimation. You know, he's gonna pretty much enslave the environment to just attack them. And the data book does not mince words by this. It like talks about how Itachi, the genius, is like taken by surprise from this technique. So you have to ask yourself, and granted, he was slowed down by protecting Sasuke, but you have to ask yourself, like, who's really gonna be able to predict all of this? If these people with like their enhanced visual insight with like the kinetic vision the Sharingan offers aren't seeing these things coming, it's just going to be very difficult. So Kabuto's definitely in the right tax bracket. He has the regen. He has like the hacks here. But it also begins to get a lot crazier when you start looking at the Sound 4 and Sound 5 abilities. You know what I'm saying? We were talking about this before. I know you mentioned Kimimaru with like the bracken dance. I want you to touch on that in a second. Something we discussed though is that not too many people will know this, that Kidomaru's chakra webbing, the one that, like, you know, he has like the webbing, that chakra circulating in there, may just be durable enough to where like conventional Susanoo sword swings can't cut it, because Sasuke notes that pretty much you can't cut it with like a regular blade, right? And you might be like, well, maybe he's just referring to his sword or just, you know, Shidori spear or something like that. But then he's forced with Itachi to like use a Madarasu on it, and then he goes a step further and uses an Enton blade to cut it, kind of giving the implication that if he could have just cut it with a regular sword or had Itachi cut it, he would have. You know what I'm saying? Which is very
because Itachi doesn't cut through the webs. He cuts through Kimimaru's bones that are laid out with bracken dance, but he doesn't do anything to the webs. He leaves it to Sasuke, who can make a sword out of a Madarasu to like burn through and cut through the web. So it's possible that like the 5 Kage might not be able to do anything about it aside from like particle style.
No, I agree. And like one last little bit on that before we segue, because I think particle style is probably like the biggest advantage the Kage have. If this sounds off to you, we're going to talk about this in a second. You're like, bro, Kidomaru's chakra webbing, like, why is that so strong? Well, I want you to factor in that Kabuto is like amplifying all of the Sound 5 abilities with Sage Mode, and we obviously know like how much of a ninjutsu buff that is off other characters. And then you have like a perfect Sage. Obviously, it's going to be very strong, but this is consistent with the data.
Well, it's also like the difference between like Yamato's wood style and Hashirama's wood style, right?
Yeah.
You know, Kidomaru's webs aren't going to be nearly as strong as fucking Kabuto dropping the same jutsu, and then Kabuto's amplifying them with Sage Mode. So yeah, when you think about it that way, it starts to make sense. Like, oh, okay, maybe the Susanoo really isn't naturally strong enough to cut through these webs.
Yeah. Yeah, and it gets consistent when you look at how like the density of these webs can be raised by like increasing the chakra used. It's like, oh, maybe this isn't that crazy. But you also have like other things like to use flute genjutsu. Do you want to talk about this? This is kind of nutty stuff what she does.
Yeah, and so this is sort of related to the location as well, because this jutsu is going to be a lot more effective if Kabuto uses it in the cave. Something I haven't talked about yet is one of the advantages that the 5 Kage have if they're fighting literally anywhere but an enclosed space is that more than one of them can fly. All of them can fly, actually, if, you know, they work together with Gaara or have Onoki carry one of them. But Onoki can just fly naturally. He can just do it like a Dragon Ball Z character. And Gaara can create, like, little clouds of sand underneath him and underneath other people and, like, lift them in the air, too, as well. But inside the cave, you know, there's not really this, like, Z-axis for them to be, like, you know, they kind of have to stay on the ground because, you know, Kabuto's going to be able to manipulate the height of the ceiling, and even if he doesn't do that, it's not like it's a huge cave or whatever. It looks like it's maybe a couple stories tall, if even. So, if Kabuto drops this flute genjutsu in the cave, there's not really going to be anywhere for the 5 Kage to retreat, and it's AoE. It catches both Sasuke and Itachi at the same time, and they both have the Sharingan to bust each other out of it.
Yeah.
What do the 5 Kage do?
No, I agree. And the thing I want like people to realize that like the Sharingan is the most like defensive thing against Genjutsu. So the fact that they were forced to bust each other out and couldn't just like flex it out, that's crazy. That's crazy to think about. Compare this to like in part 1 where Shikamaru could just like break his finger and just like break himself out of it and stuff like that. It's a monumental difference.
Even Shikamaru had to use like a weird like hacks to do it. So maybe you could argue that Tsunade would be able to do some weird like medical shit without leaving any hand seals or something. But I don't know. I feel like you have to like make up a condition for the 5 Kage to be able to escape, because Sasuke and Itachi couldn't even move aside from like looking at each other to bust themselves out. So the 5 Kage is, you know, like, what are they supposed to do? They're just going to be locked in place, and Kabuto's just going to run up to them and kill all of them, probably. That's what I think, anyway.
No, I agree.
If they're fighting outside of the cave, different story, right?
Yeah.
You know, Onoki's just going to try to fly away from the sound. Gaara's going to try to fly away from the sound. They might pick some of the other Kage up. But like you said, I think it's one of those things where if Kabuto drops this, he's catching at least one of them, and one of them's getting taken out of the fight. And speaking of, this is just something that I think we should apply to, like, the whole fight. But I think as soon as one of the Kage goes down, it gets a lot harder for them to win and a lot easier for Kabuto to win. Like, the unit's going to start falling apart. And, you know, he's a smart guy. He fights tactically. I think he understands that, you know, they work very well together. They benefit a lot from, you know, synergy, and, you know, they're able to, like, complement each other's abilities pretty well. I think he'll understand that as soon as one of them goes down, he's going to have a much easier time. So he's going to try to target probably at least one of them with one of his, like, instant win moves, like, you know, the White Extreme Attack, like the Taiyuya Genjutsu. And he just has too many win conditions, some of which can wipe out all 5 Kage, like the Taiyuya Genjutsu, at the same time. Yeah. And some of which, you know, might be able to, or at least should be able to take out one of them.
No, I agree 100%. And the biggest thing with the 5 Kage as well is that this is something I want to note is that Kabuto does have a great amount of intel on all of them. He knows about particle style. You know, he's seen Onoki use it. He knows about the 3rd Raikage. You know, he's obviously fought Tsunade. So he also does know how to approach this fight. Whereas you have to keep in mind, like, they don't know anything about this. Like, and Itachi and Sasuke were like, you know, they were able to perform well, right? But you have to look at it. It kind of took those two, like, as a caliber and, like, perfect team with, like, perfect hacks to get around this.
And insane, like, battle IQ, too. Like, Sasuke versus Deidara is, you know, like, he's like a mental giant there, bro. And we all know how smart Itachi is. So, like, these guys are struggling to figure out how to beat Kabuto. And, like, you know, the 5 Kage, they're just not there. In terms of, like, you know, their intelligence.
If I was going to give, like, if you wanted to talk about, like, the 5 Kage having win cons, we were discussing this, probably some of the better ones are if Onoki does, like, that amped giant particle style cube. If he gets that off, I mean, it's kind of cooked for Kabuto. No amount of regen is just going to bring him back from getting attacked on like an atomic level. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's pretty much one of the biggest ones. And you know, I don't want to brush over all of the Kage's jutsu, right? But like, let me give you an example. Weighted boulder doesn't matter because Kabuto can like oral rebirth out of that body. Raw damage doesn't matter. He can regen it, you know, in limbs and anything like that. He has Orochimaru's regen. Karin's regen, you know, like we mentioned before. So he kind of like, he's almost in a position where he can make mistakes where the Kage can't. And, you know, you can use their performance against Madara, but let's not mince words. They got a lot of their stuff off because Madara did allow them to. You know what I'm saying? Like, and even though a lot of these are valid strategies, Kabuto is not the same type of fighter. And in this situation, like, he will not, you know, he's not going to have any restrictions he may have potentially had in the initial fight against, you know, Sasuke and Itachi and stuff like that. So aside from maybe like a large scale particle style,
maybe like
else,
Gaara's like pyramid too.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, the Grand Mausoleum, that could also potentially be something. And again, like if you want to argue like Kabuto's ego, I think maybe, but like again, right, it just doesn't really work. He has all this win con, so I think like the Kage definitely have like a much better chance than if this isn't outside. If they're in the cave, Kabuto's just like catching a body with each of his jutsu. It's just bad, man. Unless like Tsunade breaks them out initially. So it's pretty detrimental on that front. I'm trying to like struggle to find a way for like the 5 Kage to win here, but it really
I mean like even the Grand Sand Mausoleum, it's just like, you know, Gaara like fought Kimimaro in part 1 and like he used the giant sand burial and Kimimaro just got out of it with Bracken Dance, so Kabuto might be able to do the same thing with the Grand Sand Mausoleum.
Yeah.
No, you know, like the only win con I can think of is particle style because like Mei's acid isn't gonna do anything. Tsunade's punches, the Raikage's punches, nothing. So it's really up to like Gaara and Onoki to try to like hacks him, and that's a lot to put on those two. Yeah. You know, while the other two are just like, you know, the Raikage's maybe trying to zip around and like hold him down or whatever. Yeah. Tsunade's like healing them. Like I just don't know, and I don't even know what Mei's like you know, she's like blocking his jutsu with like water walls or something maybe.
Yeah, it's like hit and miss doesn't matter because he has sensory.
No, he was fighting blind.
He was fighting blind.
Hit and miss is nothing. The hit and miss is a debuff to her team if she drops it.
I somehow forgot that he's fighting blind. It's really funny. And then like even if she raises the pH, she's just gonna hit her team while he passively regens it. It's like, bro, what in the cave, like, or you know, outside, it's just gonna disperse too quickly. So it's like, bro.
Yeah, like you said, they just have to be so much more careful because, you know, like they don't want to damage each other, and you know they're fighting against like a much more like annoying opponent than any of them individually would be. So like you said, they can't afford to make any mistakes. You know, they don't want to accidentally get off any type of friendly fire or anything like that, whereas Kabuto doesn't have that to worry about. So
yeah, I agree. So we see Kabuto like more often than not just coming away with the dub. Maybe you think we're being kind of iffy and we're saying like, oh, Tsunade can summon Katsuyu. Kabuto could summon the second Mondo, who's stronger than the first. Like, come on. Like, we can really do this all day. We can do this all day. I got time. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like, we're not going to do any of that. So, you know, like, let's just chill out. It seems just Kabuto's consistent. Is it impossible for the Kage to win? No. Is it likely? No. You know? So,
I give it in the cave, it's like 9-1 in Kabuto's favor.
Yeah.
If they're fighting in like the desert where they fought Madara or whatever, I'm saying like 7-3, 7.5, 2.5 in Kabuto's favor.
Yeah.
But it's not looking good for them.
It's a bad look. But, you know, so that's the first one. We'll just kind of slide over. You know, next up we have Madara versus Itachi and Sasuke. And I mean...
Yeah, so, you know, we're like flipping, right? You know, we gave Itachi and Sasuke's opponent to the 5 Kage. Now we're giving the 5 Kage's opponent to Itachi and Sasuke. And... yeah. If you've been around for a while and you know the deal with Swag Kage, you know how I feel about Madara, and it's time to, you know, crack my knuckles, you know, like bring out the old Swag Kage and just start deep throating Madara.
Bust out the knee pads. Bust out the knee pads, bro. Nah, go ahead. Tell them about Madara, bro. You know, go ahead. Talk to the people, bro. What you got to say about this?
I'm just gonna let some of them like do the work for us. Like, I want you to tell me what Itachi and Sasuke could possibly do to him. Like Totsuka Blade, you know, like whatever. Like, how does he hit Madara with that? Madara just dodges.
Yeah.
And like that's it, right? Like
what else is like, you know, like let me lay this out for people. Let me lay this out for you. Let's go down the list, right? Genjutsu doesn't matter because, you know, we already saw Sasuke can combat, you know, Itachi Tsukuyomi. Granted, you know, some people argue it's defense. Like it's pretty much implied that you need the Sharingan to kind of like deflect Sharingan Genjutsu. Madara has an EMS plus a Rinnegan, so that's just he's walking through that honestly, right? That doesn't matter. You know, you might argue, well, you know, Itachi and Sasuke, they're pretty strong, pretty fast at this point. Madara is swatting away KCM2 Naruto, right? Now, you know, if you want to be like extra, you could say, well, Naruto's KCM1 gets stronger, you know, showcases some new abilities. You still would never be like on top of, you know, Madara also fighting like a stronger KCM2 Naruto, like consistently. You would never be able to say like those variants of like a stronger earlier cloak just are still stronger than like the full Kurama Link, which is the difference is night and day, bro. It's a completely different. It's like, bro, it's like Super Saiyan 1 to Super Saiyan like 4. It's insane how much stronger he gets, bro. It's like he goes from like struggling with like imperfect Jinchuriki like to just bodying all of them like full power with intent to kill. So it's obviously not the case. He's obviously gonna have his Gunbai in this situation, so he could just turn any of their incoming jutsu into win release.
Madara is also like fighting, you know, say Hashirama.
You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy. It's kind of he's deflecting, you know, Amaterasu, you know, pray to path. Yikes, you know what I'm saying? Wood style. I mean, I'm not gonna say anything, but if he starts throwing wood dragons at them and like all this stuff, like, you know, like he has the pollen jutsu that was like AoE wipe the 5 Kage, you know, he has all this crazy stuff, and it's like, what do you argue for Itachi and Sasuke? Oh, they like Madara's character. They get a Totsuke blade off. Okay, Madara's communicating with Zetsu. He's gonna tell him, hey, bro, don't do it.
That's the thing, right? Like, even if you want to assume somehow Itachi just like giga brains Madara and tricks him into taking a hit from the Totsuke blade, and like Madara doesn't know how it works. Zetsu's not gonna let that happen. Zetsu needs this Ten Tails Jinchuriki shit to happen. He needs the infinite Tsukuyomi to get launched so that Kaguya can come back to life. Okay, he is not going to let Madara get stabbed by the fucking Totsuke blade. It's just no way. 0% chance that it happens. Madara is too fast for it to tag him anyway, and that's their only win condition, right? Like, I think that this is just a matter of like how much can they impress him and how nice is he gonna be to them after the fight. You know
I think like in character, this is literally like Madara being like, oh, you guys are like kind of up there with the Uchiha I've seen. Like, let's see what you got. Start summoning some clones. Let's play game. He's going to throw some wood style at him. You know, maybe Sasuke and Madarasu's the wood style. Whatever you want to say, at a certain point, it's like he just has everything against him, bro. Like there's not, you know, Sasuke and Itachi's avatars are not on the same level as like Naruto with like the full QB, and Madara just summoned like Hashirama's Wood Dragon and just like wipe that. You know what I'm saying? So like, bro, like I'm struggling, bro. I'm struggling. And to like kind of like hammer this home, Sasuke after this point, you know, goes through some developments. You know, maybe you think he gets stronger, gets more used to his EMS, you know, adapts a little more. Orochimaru, after absorbing like all the intel from Kabuto and on the war, and after seeing Madara, looks at that Sasuke and is like, bro, you're gonna surpass him one day. Huh? He's talking about Edo Madara. What do you mean? That's not even like, you know what I'm saying? It's over. So there's not really like a situation where they can really pull up a win con, unless you argue like Madara is just like, you know, joshing around to like the highest degree, which again, it just doesn't, there's not too much, you know. I'm itching my nose trying to figure it out, man. A perfect Susanoo.
You also have like Kabuto, who has Itachi like in his back pocket and knows about Sasuke, saying shit like the only person who can stop Madara is the first Hokage, Hashirama. You know, it's not a good look, bro. Like, they're not gonna do anything, especially if it gets to a point where, and it probably will, because he likes to show off, and they're Uchiha, and they have Susanoo. He's gonna be like, oh, wow, 2 of you with a
Bet.
Susanoo, that's cool, but like check this shit out. And then he's gonna whip out the perfect Susanoo, and then he's just gonna swing them into the mountains like with his giant perfect Susanoo sword. It's gonna be like a baseball bat or like a golf club, bro. He's just gonna swat them away, and they're gonna fucking die.
It's gonna turn into a dick measuring contest, and he's gonna win. That's the best way I could put it. Like, the air pressure alone is gonna send them flying, even if you want to say like the Yadamir's omnidirectional. Sasuke's getting popped. Like, it's over. Then it's like, okay, it's like Itachi versus Madara 1v1. It's like, even if you argue, like, okay, like, Madara can't seal them, he just, like, suppresses them with, like, the Wood Dragon. Then, like, that counts as a win. Like, he's just going to kill Sasuke, suppress Itachi. It's going to be GG from there. And I even think, like, to encapsulate this discussion, I think there's even, like, a statement in Data Book 4 with, like, Madara being, like, the strongest Uchiha. And, like, you can argue placements, but that's probably referencing before the 6 Pat stuffs and maybe, like, the 10 Tails Jinchuriki stuff, which, I mean, I don't think anybody was fighting anyway, but shit, there you go, So Madara, we think kind of comes out on top, probably like 10 times out of 10, unless you're saying like otherwise. What do you think, bro?
Yeah, like the only thing is like, I don't know, Izanami, which Madara knows about. He's not gonna let that shit happen to him. And the Totsuka blade, which, even if you want to assume that Madara doesn't know how it works, which, fair, it is kind of baseless to assume that he just knows what it is.
Yeah.
Zetsu's going to come in and be like, hey, watch out for that. So then it's like, he's going to be like, oh, okay, not let it hit him, and then he's just going to take him out, right? Like, it's like you said, I think it's 10-0 in Madara's favor. Maybe like 9.5, 0.5, because Itachi is a smart dude.
Yeah,
but so is Madara, right? Like, it's
honestly,
like they're fighting just like a dumb, like, powerhouse or whatever. Like, Madara is really strong and one of the most intelligent characters in the series, so.
Yep. And I'll add this, like, as a last note, like, Izanami wouldn't even work because, like, it's not like Madara's, like, lying to his true self or having, like, some double identity or anything like that. Nah, bro's just he's chilling. He knows who he is. He's got it like that. So there's no potential for that. So yeah, I think we said enough. Madara glaze aside, he probably just wipes. But
well, the last thing I want to say
go ahead, bro.
is, like, even if you think like, oh well, Yadamir will just block his perfect Susanoo, he'll just bust out Chibaku Tensei. And like Itachi and Sasuke aren't taking that out. Like, it took Naruto and Bee helping Itachi to take out Nagato's Chibaku Tensei, which should be significantly weaker than Madara's. So yeah,
Tengai Shinsei, man. Like, what are they doing? Nothing. It's over.
They're getting flattened like a Goomba beneath.
It's over.
Tengai Shinsei.
Nasty stuff. But continue. Segue us into the next one, man.
Yeah, so next up, we have Naruto and Bee versus Kabuto. So we're going to split this into 2 rounds. The first round is just, KCM1, Naruto, and Bee alone versus Kabuto. And then the second round is, full KCM2 Kurama Link Mode Naruto, Bee, Kakashi, and Guy versus Kabuto. So the first one is, I think, like, really, like, it's a good combo.
Here's the thing about this one, right? On paper, like, first of all, we could discuss, like, in the cave, I think Naruto and Bee do suffer a lot of the same issues that the Kage did. I don't want to, like, rehash that. You guys heard our thoughts on that, I will say, you could maybe argue Naruto be able to, like, hatred, like, sense Kabuto through the white extreme attack. If it was just visual, like a visual thing, kind of like what it was with Fu and, like, her blinding dust. But the problem is it also affects them, like, and, like, rattles their bones and stuff like that. So even if they sense him, they just probably wouldn't be able to do anything. And it just kind of creates, like, this same problem we were discussing before. Kabuto has all these ways to get around them. Now, interestingly enough, though, I think that Bee and Naruto have better ways to get around the cave in a similar sense to, like, what Tsunade could do, is, like, break out of it. We could see something like the A-Tails doing, like, the A-Tail spin on the cave, kind of similar to what he does in the forest to, like, completely clear it, which would destroy the cave and create a big problem for Kabuto. It kind of does depend if Bee starts out in his A-Tails form or not. In character, he doesn't. Not at all throughout the war. He only does it when they're getting messed up. So it's kind of a bad look, that he probably wouldn't be able to get this off. But if you say he survives and does it, that creates kind of an interesting situation, because then you have, like, full A-Tails killer Bee, Naruto on his shoulder, and then Sage Mode Kabuto on the ground looking a little goofy. You know what I'm saying? Well, what do you think about that? What do you think happens with that?
Well, so one thing I'm gonna say about, like, if it is like an in the cave type battle, like where, you know, Naruto and Bee like bust in there the same way Itachi and Sasuke did, and they're like, okay, we're here to end the war. If the white extreme attack happens towards the beginning of the fight, I can actually see a way. Now, this is like iffy, but a way for Naruto to handle it, even if he doesn't know how it works, which is like, KCM is like weird. It's like the weirdest Jinchuriki ability in the series, because he has like the stretchy Mr. Fantastic chakra hands, right? And he can make them like really big too. So I'm imagining like maybe like he sees that attack and just throws out the hands to like catch it and like crush it maybe, which might stop it from exploding like prematurely or whatever. But that's the only thing I can think of, and that's iffy. So I'm 50-50 on if that works. But even if it does go off, I think Gyuki might be able to like snap Bee out of it and like transform and, you know, like stop all the vibrations just like with like through like the force of him like transforming into the 8-tail suddenly, and then like rotate. So I do think that they can get rid of the cave, like even if Kabuto like opens with like a crazy attack or whatever. So I think that this is probably, whether they start there or not, gonna be like a fight that takes place in an open area, which is a lot better for Naruto and Bee. For all the reasons that we talked about with the 5 Kage. Now, that said, it's still not like a free win for them or whatever, because Kabuto's like really, really strong.
Yeah. And before that's that, I just want to make a little note, because I like a lot of what you said. A quick thing you can use to kind of compare this as well, because you brought up like Naruto with the stretchy arms and stuff like that, is that Naruto here is like the 10-tail screech. It's like binding the entire Shinobi Alliance, but he's still able to maintain his QB cloak. So if you kind of like take those two like different abilities, blindness and screeching, and he could still like keep his cloak active, it might also benefit what you were saying, which you kind of reminded me of that like when you were spitting. So I do agree with that. And once they're out of the cave, there is some potential, if you argue like straight up, the 8-tails just nukes Kabuto with like a tail beast bomb, like a big ass one, like because at that point, they're like the 8-tail is going to be a little too durable for like Kabuto to manipulate the environment to just straight up like hit him with like tree roots and stuff like that. Because we see like he can't even pierce the Susanoo hand or anything like that. So he's not really going to be able to damage Gyuki like that. And we also haven't seen like the upper limits of Kabuto's durability to just say like, oh, if the 8-tails just like charges that up and shoots it at him, or maybe a barrage, he's going to just be able to survive it. You know, I think if you want to say, like, he maybe, like, runs away or is able to, like, get away from some of the blast and, like, regen some part of it. Maybe, but, like, a big explosion? No. He might just end up, like, Suigetsu, try to, like, you know, was kind of turning to mush after it. But there just really isn't enough evidence to say. But, like, that's probably one of the better ways I see these two coming out. Because Naruto matters. Like, he can throw, like, Rasen Shuriken and stuff like that. But, again, like, Bee's able to kind of, like, mitigate and keep distance from Kabuto, which does help in avoiding Kabuto's hacks, like Tsuyo's Flute Genjutsu or Kidomaru's Chakra Webbing, which, I'm going to be honest, I don't know how you argue, like, Sage Kabuto's, like, Chakra Webbing also just blocks a tail beast bomb, but maybe
I agree. Or even if it's not the bomb, like the laser would probably chew through it. I agree with what you were saying, that like Naruto is a bit iffy, but I think Bee is just a really bad matchup for Kabuto, because it's like, even if he traps them both in the Taiyuya Genjutsu, Gyuki's just gonna snap Bee out of it like he did with the Sharingan Genjutsu. You know, the chakra webbing I don't think is going to be effective, because even if Bee is like slowed down while he's transformed into the full 8-tails, he's still going to be shooting these crazy powerful projectiles at Kabuto. The Bracken dance, like whatever, it's going to be like stepping on a nail basically. You know, for Gyuki. And like it's not like he's like stuck on the ground just because he's big or whatever. Like he could jump really high in the air, you know, like we see him do against the 10-tails. So I think that it's hard for me to say, like, I want to give this to Naruto and Bee, just because like even if Kabuto is able to temporarily take Naruto out of the picture, I think that Bee just has like too many advantages or ways to dismiss like the things that make Kabuto so dangerous.
No, I agree. I mean, the best way I'll phrase it is that, like, you know, you could, like, argue this around, especially depending on how fast you think Kabuto is. But early fight, you know, if it's in the cave, Kabuto has such an advantage. And then the late fight, when, like, these guys are just, like, kind of far away, mitigating his hacks, he doesn't really have, like, the AP, so to speak, to just start damaging them. You know, that's kind of where his, like, advantage, like, kind of falls apart a little bit. because then he doesn't really have anything he can do. The Genjutsu doesn't really work. So early fight, I would say like I lean Kabuto, and then like late fight, Naruto Bee, just because Kabuto doesn't really have a counter for like these large scale avatars with these like insane attacks that just like he hasn't shown the ability to kind of tank or just deal with, generally speaking. It's just going to be a little too much, honestly speaking. And that's, again, if you argue the cave. If you argue a random forest, this low-key might be worse. You know what I'm saying? This might end up in a worse situation. This, like, imagine they see in the forest, Kabuto tries this. And again, you could say it's kind of similar, but then just imagine Bee's like, wee! And they just start shooting shit at him. It's like, bro, it's kind of like, what is he doing? What is he doing? You know what I'm saying? So, that's probably the way I would phrase it. So, it's kind of like, I might even argue it's like a 5 out of 10 situation just because of how flipped it can go due to the early fight. What's your opinion on all that?
Yeah, I agree. It's like 5.5 like type of situation. Like if Kabuto is able to lock it up with like some surprise stuff that Naruto and Bee aren't ready for very early on while they're inside of the cave, then yeah, I would give it to him. But if they're able to outlast him or like do anything about like, like the crazy hacks that he might throw at them, like, if Naruto's able to stop the White Supreme attack and like Bee sees that and he's like, oh, it's really bad that we're in a cave, let me do something about that, and then it turns into a more wide open area, then I think that Kabuto is going to have a much harder time, and then eventually like maybe it's like a war of attrition type thing or whatever, where he's going to try to outlast them, but Naruto and Bee are just going to be like better at it than he is. So like you said, late fight, like if it goes on long, Naruto and Bee are probably going to take it, but if Kabuto is able to wrap it up fast, then it's like over.
No, I agree. And then round 2, I'll say this, it doesn't get better for Kabuto. It's KCM2 Naruto.
It gets so much worse. Oh my god.
KCM2 or like Kurama Link Naruto, however you want to say that, Kurama Link mode. Bee, Kakashi, and Guy. Now I'm going to be honest. I think KCM2 Naruto by himself just wins this, because it's like, it was kind of like,
it's bad, bro.
What do you like let me paint a scenario, right? Because like, let's say, this fight starts, the cave doesn't matter. The cave's done. Naruto's busting that by himself. He could put everybody else in the avatar. Naruto and Bee are busting that. So get any elemental or like locale matchups, like Monster Hunter, like the locale, that don't matter. None of that matters. But then you put it like Naruto and Bee, Naruto's so far away, the White Extreme Attack isn't going to affect him as much. He's going to be farther away, so the light, maybe you are the light, but the sound vibrations aren't going to like travel as well. It's going to be a very bad situation. Him and Bee just like, Odama Bijou that boy, and then it's over. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like there's no real way to argue again. Like what does Kabuto do? I'll wait.
Don't everybody speak at once,
Put all your hands down. What do you think about this? What do you think about this, bro?
I mean, like, I agree with everything you said, and that's not even mentioning, Guy being there to like, just launch a Hirudora at him, and Kakashi being able to BFR him with Kamui. It's just way too much. I think Kabuto's gonna get overwhelmed really fast. I think that this is an 8 or a 9 out of 10 in favor of like the team.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you want to argue like he gets a limb sniped off or two, depending on what version of Kakashi used with Kamui. Sure, but then like, you get into like, if Kabuto gets his head severed off, like how's that looking? How's that regen? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's kind of interesting. And then Guy's just support. He's just going to be yelling youth with like a poster up, so he doesn't even need to be in the combo. So this round 2, like Kabuto doesn't really have that opportunity. None of his hacks really do too much. Genjutsu's just worse. Yeah, all that stuff.
So finally, we have a pretty good, clean win for the good guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We're doing good. Now we're going to switch over because we have Obito in the Jinchuriki, all of the Edo Jinchuriki, or, the Edo Bijou Jinchuriki, whatever, versus the 5 Kage. Now, look, man.
Whoa. So what you may have gotten from those previous swaps is that, the Naruto Bee Kakashi Guy team is like kind of doing the most, like out of everybody, right? You know, like I think they're the most well equipped to handle like anybody. Definitely better than the 5 Kage, because they got taken out by Kabuto, and now we're giving the opponent that they fought in the regular series to the 5 Kage, who just got smacked by Kabuto. And Naruto and Bee didn't even win this fight. And then Kakashi and Guy showed up. They were still struggling, bro. This is bad.
I gotta put a couple things in perspective, right? First of all, Naruto got out stamina'd here. That's what you want to realize first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
Obito pressed him so hard that Naruto's visible fatigue, like he was about to collapse. Like nobody in the war was doing that, right? When you look at the Edo Jinchuriki, right, to kind of put this into perspective, I didn't get a chance to talk about this. We were talking about this before the call. I am of the opinion, on top of like the Rinnegan, Sharingan stuff, that what Obito did to them is he made them all exactly like Killer Bee and made them all perfect Jinchuriki, right? Because they all have that tail, tail from the Bijou. And we see that like Kisame when he fights Bee, Kisame who's fought other Jinchuriki, notes that like Bee being able to do like that partial transformation is just like a note of that. And this has pretty crazy like ramifications because it just kind of puts like the Edo Jinchuriki on a higher level to when they were alive, but it also makes it so their tail beast forms are stronger because their bases would be stronger because Gaara's like playing possum jutsu, and like Naruto's data book discussed like how that jutsu like combines Gaara and Shikaku's chakra. Naruto unleashes his and Kurama's chakra. Jinchuriki are stronger than the Bijou. You get what I'm saying? So you kind of have like 6 people on the level of KCM1, Naruto, and B versus like, guy who, the fastest guy in the group is just slower than Naruto and B. It's like,
yeah.
Oh shit.
And
oh,
like
shit.
the other thing too is just like, okay, so these Jinchuriki are like all like scaling to one another.
Yeah.
And it's like one of them is a Kage and he's amped. So it's like 5 Kage versus 6 like Kage level fighters with regen and like Bijou and like Sharingan precog and it's like so bad. And then they can, like I said, they have the Bijou, so they can transform. They can go into their V1 cloaks and their V2 cloaks, and they can transform into the full-tailed beasts. And there are more of them than there are the 5 Kage. Like, the only thing that really works here, I feel like, is if Tsunade does what she did against Madara and juices up Onoki so that he can drop the massive particle, like we said against Kabuto, the giant particle-style cube to take out at least one, maybe a couple of the tailed beasts. But, like, even then, Obito can just, jump down, use Kamui to, like, suck it away. Right.
And that's if they're full Bijou, because they're Edo Tensei. Like, if he does it too early, it just doesn't matter because Obito Kamui's through it like he did in the 5 Kage Summit. So if they actually enact this win con way too early, it like Obito's like Edo Tensei, just like regen and stuff like that. And I also want to put it into perspective, because I think particle style individually is effective against the Bijou, but all of these Bijou are able to like tangle with like the A-tails and like a kaiju like brawl. This is like my opinion, I don't think the difference between like the full-tailed beast on top of these tailed beasts being amped is that massive, because they're all able to damage the A-tails. I think it's more comes about when like their chakra like when you get into their chakra quantities and like they're doing tail beast bombs against one another and stuff like that. And like Yuki kind of chides the 9 tails for thinking like this, but like when you keep that all in mind, bro, like is Katsuyu like running the hands with the 5 tails? I don't think so. I don't think Katsuyu's got it like that. Obito obviously can BFR. He does have access to all the Rinnegan abilities. He just doesn't use them. So I mean, what
like
happens?
I said before the video too, one of the reasons he cites for not using the Rinnegan abilities is everyone he's fought aside from B has seen them before, or at least has heard of them before, right? Because Guy wasn't fighting pain, but he was in the leaf. He probably heard about what was going on. Like he probably heard about like exchanging war stories with your war buddies type deal. And Naruto fought all of the pains. Kakashi fought 2 of the pains. So Obito was just like, they'll know how to handle this, whatever. The only person who actually fought pain in the 5 Kage group is Tsunade, and she only fought Tendo, and it was barely even a fight. Like, he tried to Shinra Tensei her, or I don't remember if it was Shinra Tensei or Bansho Tenin, one of the 2, and she like stuck her, like feet in the ground, used her chakra to stick.
Oh, that's why he didn't. That's why he didn't, because they had their chakra like they're pretty much ready for it. And because like she tried to chase him when he's doing his like God speech. She's like trying to stop him, and it's keep going.
And then she saw him do the Shinra Tensei that blew up the leaf, but that's it. But she doesn't really know that much about like all of the other pains and stuff. And the other 4 Kage are just clueless. So Obito might just have one of the paths of pain, one of the Jinchuriki, just drop Chibaku Tensei on them or something. You know? Just because they're not going to be nearly as prepared as Naruto and Kakashi. And another thing too, for why Obito might not have used Chibaku Tensei is because he knows Kakashi has Kamui. Yeah. And Kakashi can just kind of like deal with that. But none of the Kage have like any answer to that. So even if like Obito drops the big cube on them, like he could just have one of the Jinchuriki absorb it, for example. So I mean, it's just there are so many ways for Obito to win without even like having to step on the battlefield himself. Now he might have to if the Kage bust out some of their like huge AoE. Really, just if Anoki busts out his huge AoE cube, that's the only thing that might cause Obito to have to step in. But like aside from that, he might just be able to chill, pull out like a pool chair, lean back, eat some chips or whatever.
Load up some Storm, like just start vibing, bro. He might just start. He might try to run it back in Storm. Just that's how bored he might be. And I agree with everything. I agree with everything you said. And this is also something I bring up for why he didn't use the Rinnegan abilities. That he was already being like forced to suppress like the tail beast with his own chakra. So it's like he also kind of does have to be conservative with his own reserves as well. So it's like you look at that, you look at the fact that he never even fights Naruto or Bee with intent to kill. You have things like the Coral Palm, which are like paralyzing QB Naruto. You have all like it's like bro, like the Edo Jinchuriki in their own. You have Yagura's like Water Mirror, which can like
I was about to bring that up, which is crazy. It just creates a copy. It's stupid.
It makes no sense. You have Han with like boil release where it just like amps him. Some translations differ, but like it's like puts him in like some of the peak taijutsu and stuff like that, like or just like among the top in the world. It's absolutely insane what he can do. So not only do these individuals have their own diverse abilities, they can use these abilities while up to their version 2, and then as full Bijou, they have like their own abilities, all of which are effective on a full 8 tails, which can just survive its own tail beast bomb. So I mean, that's it's a little what do you say, bruh? What do you like? What I feel like this is just
I think it's 10-0.
Yeah,
Obito's
10-0.
favor.
It's a perfect game, double bagel, nothing to it. So yeah, we'll segue into the next one, which is Naruto Bee versus Madara. We can kind of like the 2-round stuff we did before, but I mean, we don't.
It's bad.
We don't need to talk about QB Naruto and Bee versus Madara. Like we saw what he did to them with a stronger Naruto. Casual. Like he's cracking his knuckles, wiping the dust off his shoulder. He's like, man, let's have a little fun before, which is something people don't bring up too. He did that to him while arguably just like not going all out. He's like, let's enjoy ourselves. So, which is bad. So we'll skip round 1. Round 2, a lot more interesting. We have the same KCM2 Naruto, Bee, Kakashi, and Guy. Now, low key, Madara kind of wiped 3/4 of these dudes before in the video. He pretty much like bodied Naruto with completely just absorbed the Kurama avatar with Hashirama's Wood Dragon. Bee and Guy fight Madara off screen, but they get bodied. Like it's so like they are bleeding and heavily damaged, right? So we don't see that. One thing I'll say real quick before we throw Kakashi in, I know some people like to argue that Guy actually just big Chungus hit Madara with the Hirodora. I have problems with this. While it's a good feat, Naruto was holding Madara down, and we don't know actually what happened to Madara after the explosion. So you could actually never.
It seemed like he was fine.
Yeah. So you can never prove like Guy actually just pops like Susanoo avatars with Hirodora and stuff like that. But Kakashi's kind of interesting. Now, does Kakashi make the difference here? Probably not. I'm going to be honest. Do you want to talk about this? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, so, Kakashi is Kamui Man. he's like the potential man of the group. He has the ability to put Madara in timeout in the Kamui dimension. And, if he does that, obviously they win, right? Madara doesn't have Kamui. He can't get himself out of there. But, I don't know. How does he do it? Madara's fast. And, Kakashi has to... he's able to do it to one of Naruto's clones. So it's possible that, if Madara is, super preoccupied, maybe. But you would have to prove that there wasn't some kind of, planning or synergy or Naruto letting it happen to him. He was also able to do it to Obito, and Obito it forced him to use his own Kamui to cancel it out. So he might actually be able to catch Madara, but it's not like Kamui is just instant, right? Deidara was able to resist a much weaker, more imperfect, or I guess I should say less perfect version of the jutsu. So it's maybe Kakashi would be able to do something if Naruto, Bee, and Guy all are just able to press him enough to the same way the 5 Kage did that forced him to use the Rinnegan to absorb jutsu or whatever. But I don't know. Yeah, I feel like Madara is gonna be fine. He was just kind of playing around with Naruto, Bee, and Guy. I know that I'm Mr. Madara here, so maybe I'm just being biased, but I just don't think that Kakashi is gonna be the guy who tips the scales.
No, I mean I'll say this because a lot of people talk about Kakashi and the war arc and stuff like that, but there's a couple things you need to look at because I think a lot of people overblow the Kamui stuff. His more impressive Kamui feats comes after he directly receives chakra from the Nine Tails, because before that point we actually see him pass out, from using it and stuff like that. So he already can't just spam it crazy. And he does use it a couple times, but it's already kind of iffy. You know what I'm saying? Especially in the speed department and stuff like that. And he does receive chakra and stuff like that. Now there are a few micro examples you can use. One of the better ones, in my opinion, is him. You brought up the Kamui, the KCM2 Naruto clone. He actually does Kamui it, Obito doesn't see it. So maybe if you want to argue Kamui just might be that fast, I could maybe see it, but you also have to argue it's a perfect snipe, you know what I'm saying? Madara is not doing anything. If he's also in the Susanoo avatar, which he is most of the time actually, he's in most of his fights, it'll just hit the avatar first and not him because it's gonna hit whatever's in his visual first. So there are a bunch of problems with it. But it is a feasible thing. Now, if you don't if you put the Kamui thing aside,
the other thing real quick
go
I
ahead.
want to say about Kamui is even if he's able to look through the Susanoo and snipe Madara through the Susanoo or something, like I said, Madara might be able to feel it or whatever, the same way that Deidara could kind of tell what was happening to him and try to move, but Madara doesn't have to actually physically move out of the way of the space-time hole. He could just this is kind of I feel an unintended property. Yeah. Or an unintended, it feels like an exploit, right? Yeah. Secret tech or something. But he could just go from regular Susanoo to perfect, and it would just move him up out of the way of the Kamui. So
that's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah.
no, that's kind of crazy. I was thinking about that. That's funny as fuck. Now, I mean, aside from that, right? We already saw he can no-diff Naruto with the Wood Dragon. We saw what he did to Bee and, Guy. You kind of have to argue Madara's character again. I mean, on top of all this, he obviously has the Tengai Shinsei, which would also be too big for Kakashi to Kamui. So he can also just force Kakashi into situations where he may not be able to Kamui. But, it is possible to argue, Kakashi may just, Kamui him. Granted, it kind of does depend on the visuals and stuff like that. One thing I also want to bring up, a lot of people cite this with Naruto actually grabbing, there's a scene where Madara is about to stab the Eight Tails and Obito's about to stab Kakashi, and Naruto intercepts both of them. I've heard some people argue that's body flicker Naruto, but here's the thing I also want to realize, body flicker Naruto just stopped a regular Susanoo from Madara. So the perfect's just going to be faster and stronger than that. So it really wouldn't do anything for that. Because I know some people bring up that thing as a speed feat, but no, and again, Madara's just playing around. So it doesn't even necessarily matter. And we saw what he did to KCM2 Naruto. So he just kind of has the hacks, all these AoE, Tengai Shinsei, Hashirama's Pollen, wood style, you know, all this crazy stuff, like Predator Path. Like, the one thing I want to add too, unless Kakashi perfect snipes, Madara is going to regen. The best ceiling this squad has is just Bee's like ink ceiling, which, you know, the tail beast.
LMAO.
LMAO, yeah. The tail beast just click like back quarter circle and like powered up out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we weren't really too pressed about that. So, I would say, like, if you kind of like really take Madara's character and just say he's really playing around, I think a Kamui snipe is possible. But like,
he has to get the whole body.
Yeah. And it's like there's a lot of ways like it could not happen. So like I would probably say like 9.5 like out of 10. Madara just clears it. Maybe
and it's
even
also
higher.
assuming that he has no clones out and Kakashi's not getting him like mixed up or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, just like stuff like that, right?
No
like,
wood clones.
It's just you have to give so much leeway to Team Naruto Bee, Kakashi, and Guy. And like, again, I know I'm Mr. Madara Glazer, but I mean he's strong. Like that's why.
Yeah. No, I mean like this is the same guy who like people throw up versus like 10 Tails Obito. You know what I'm saying? This is like the type of tax bracket we're kind of getting into, you know what I'm saying? It's I'm of the opinion like nobody in the war surpassed like Madara Hashirama objectively, because you can argue it around like a whole stat tier, like aside from like 10 Tails Obito. But aside from all that, we're gonna get into the next matchup, which is also a good one. I know we kind of had two stomps in the row. I'm sorry about that. Obito and the Edo Jinchuriki versus Itachi and Sasuke. Now, unlike the 5 Kage, this is actually a really good discussion since Itachi and Sasuke have a lot of great win cons here against the Edo Jinchuriki. Amaterasu is very good, unless you argue the Edo Jinchuriki, you know, start using the Rinnegan abilities and stuff like that, which we kind of touched on briefly, maybe why Obito wouldn't, but if he does here, I mean, Amaterasu's getting negged. Amaterasu's a lot more effective against, like, the full Bijou or anything like that, kind of similar to the 8 Tails. But Itachi and Sasuke can essentially just kind of sit inside their Susanoo. Itachi could Totsuka Blade the Edo Jinchuriki. Itachi and Sasuke should also be coming in pretty solid from a stat category too. So there's all these things that just kind of give them a good fight against the Edo Jinchuriki. What are your thoughts on this? Like, how do you feel about it?
I think them versus the Edo Jinchuriki is a good discussion, but as soon as you get into like Obito stepping on the battlefield and like, that's when it gets like dicey. I don't like. I think that Itachi and Sasuke, like, I think they're gonna get messed up a little bit by the Jinchuriki. Like, it's gonna be a tough fight for them because this is 6 tailed beasts at once that are being amped by the Rinnegan, right? Yeah. But I think they would probably still win. You know, Itachi's strong. He has regen, infinite Mangekyo, you know, and he's really smart too. And, you know, Sasuke is able to keep up with him. But then it's like I said, as soon as it comes to, like, them versus Obito, I mean, like, what do they do about Kamui?
Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about real quick is that, like, let's say, you know, you create a situation, right, where, like, Obito intercepts them and, like, sends one of them to the Kamui dimension. I'm of the opinion, you know, I'm curious to hear Swag's take, that Kamui kind of operates similar to, like, the Nether from Minecraft, which this sounds weird, but just stay with me. We're like, it kind of matters where Obito Kamui is in relation to, like, the actual, like, planet Earth. Because when he's Kamuing around, there are moments where, like, he's phasing through and people in the Kamui dimension, like Karin and Sasuke, don't see him, right? But then, like, when Kakashi Kamui's, like, in a similar, like, point, on a similar, like, kind of, like, for example, the Kunai or, like, Naruto, or, like, he gets Kamui'd in, it's like he's in a similar spot to Obito and stuff like that. So there's also that potential. Like, that's kind of how I perceive Kamui. I don't know your opinion on it. I just, like, wanted to throw that in. Like,
no, I agree. Yeah. So it's like if he Kamui's, like, Itachi in wrong and, like, he leaves him, like, within too close of a proximity to him or whatever, he might get Totsuka and, like, lose. But I think that, like, he's probably smart enough to, like, work around that.
Yeah, I agree. And it obviously presents some issues. And I do think you could argue, like, Itachi and Sasuke do pull off, like, a win against the Edo Jinchuriki. They have, like, a Materasu, you know, Enton, Totsuka Blade. Maybe Itachi seals some of them. I think also a potential win con is Izanami. It would work on Obito because Obito is, like, kind of a similar case to Kabuto where he's, like, denying him his true self. But the issue with this is, like, I almost don't feel like Itachi would get the chance to, like, start the loop and then like create like a similar instance with all that's going on in the battlefield. Like
it's just too chaotic. There's too much going on, dude.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's way too much to argue. Like he would just be able to just like create those similar conditions, which is how the Izanami loop works. He takes an action, he has to like pretty much repeat the action, and like everything in between is like what's the loop, and then that obviously happens. Like, and it takes the physical sensations, all that stuff. So it's kind of like we actually could see a situation where like Itachi and Sasuke via like Susanoo, possible ceiling, Madarasu could take down the Edo Jinchuriki or Bijou, but when you factor in like Obito like kind of coming into the fray after that, neither of them are really going to be able to do too much about the surprise Kamui attempts, unless you argue he just throws one of them in which case you could see a scenario where like the one in there could actually capitalize on Obito Kamuing. So I actually think this one does have some possibility. You kind of just have to argue around like how Obito fights with the Edo Jinchuriki, and like maybe he just doesn't decide to like do like all 6 of them and like nuke all at once or something like that, you know, kind of similar to what he was doing versus like everybody else. So what would you kind of rate this one, like, you know, with everything being said?
It's not good for Itachi and Sasuke, but it's not unwinnable. I'd give it like a 7 or 8 in Obito's favor.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think if it's just the Jinchuriki, it's like a 6 or 7, maybe an 8 in Itachi and Sasuke's favor. But then like with Obito in the equation as well, that's when it starts looking bad for them.
Agreed. And it's possible, but there's just like all these factors and stuff like that. So you'll have to consider with that. So, you know, those are the matchups. A fun like little bonus round we just threw in real quick was like discussing like the 4th division. And what if you threw Obito or Kabuto in there? And I mean, we can start with Obito.
The bullet point on the document that we're both looking at. So we have a bunch of bullet points for like all of these other rounds of like, you know, how certain people interact with each other. There are at least 2 on every single one, and they kind of get into detail. The only bullet point we have on 4th division versus Obito and Kabuto is just nonsense. Obito is just gonna run through and beat everybody up the same way that Madara did. Kabuto is gonna do the same thing. You know, he's probably just gonna start having like, you know, like these like big like rock pillars just come up and like impale people or kill people or send them into space or whatever. You know, like it's just he's gonna like white extreme attack, like. Because it's like the 4th division, it's like 2 Kage, and then like a Naruto clone are their heavy hitters. And the rest of the people, it's like you got Tamari, Godai, ooh, you know, like what Obito doesn't care, bro, and Kabuto doesn't either. So I think that like it's interesting, but it's just like a stomp the way that it was with Madara.
I mean, like, the one thing I'll say, you know, is that, like, Obito also pulled up versus, like, another division and just said, like, I'm going to borrow this. And they couldn't really stop him with the Genomon. He's like, I'm going to borrow your copy of Super Smash Bros. I'm going to bring it back scratched up, and you can't really do anything about it. You know, there's not too much there. Kabuto could be more interesting, but imagine if, like, Gar used his sand and then, like, Kabuto just enslaved it with nature energy and used it against him.
Or just like Bracken danced like the whole division and it just like came out and like killed Gaara, right? You know,
who's
like
stopping it, bro? Like what's happening? You know what I mean? So it's like these two I could definitely see taking on that division. I think Obito would probably have an easier time, but I think both of them would kind of come out with like that indisputable W and stuff like that.
Especially because Obito's like armed with his 6 paths of pain, the Jinchuriki, and they're just gonna go crazy. Bro.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So
like you thought that like fire style, Great Fire Annihilation was bad, you know, and they all have to come out with their water. Well, that little like water thing is not doing anything to 6-tail beast bomb. So
it's like, bro, they're gonna have Naruto running like they did against the Tengai Shinsei, bro. He's gonna be shook. So I mean, moral of the story, and like moral of discussion is probably a good thing that, like, you know, things went the way they did and these matchups kind of followed suit the way they did. Otherwise, like, it's not looking too good for a lot of the Shinobi Alliance. You know what I'm saying? It's not looking
I think there was only one win for the good guys, and it was Naruto and Bee versus Kabuto. Everything else is just like the good guys get fucking shit on, dude.
It's really bad. And I also think it outlines like how matchup heavy a lot of these discussions were, which I love. Like, that's the nuance of Naruto, and as it should be. But then you got Madara, who's just like swinging it around. You know what I mean? Like, what happened?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
nobody can really do anything about Buddy there. So,
yeah. So that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know it was a longer one. We enjoyed making it. I thought there was a lot of great discussion points in here. Obviously, subscribe if you want more for this. This
do
guy
it now.
You know what I mean? You heard him. You know what I mean? You've heard of this guy. I mean, if you haven't, shit, you heard of him now. There's my Kage. So, Mr. Swiddle. So that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, let me know down below. Like and subscribe if you're new here. I'm repeating myself. I'm under Genjutsu. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Later.